Well then, only one thing to do now. So one of my all-time favorite video game trilogies, as well as my very first 3 games I ever played back when I was a kid, are being remastered for the PS4. And I'm just sitting over here like, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming, man? After all this time, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought Spyro was just, well, dead. I always planned on doing a retrospective of the Spyro series on this channel, due to just how much they mean to me, not just as a gamer, but to my childhood, and to me as a whole, as corny as that sounds. However, with this new remaster coming out on September 21st, I thought it would be no more fitting than to look back at these games and why I love them so much. But with one little rule. If I were to lay it out just flat, put all my cards down on the table on what I think about the original games, I would probably just simply say, they're great, dude. Go play them. Or play them when the remaster comes out. Do whatever. So for the sake of this being interesting, I'm going to be looking at the good and the bad sides of these games, and analyzing them on a much deeper level. Well, you know, a bit deeper of a level. So with that whole ramble out of the way, sit back, relax, and enjoy the beginning of the Spyro Series Retrospective. Before I jump into the game, perhaps a bit of history is in order. Spyro the Dragon, released in 1999, September 9th, was developed by the famous Insomniac Games, whom prior to this game had made a Doom clone game of sorts by the name of Disruptor, which, if I'm being honest, isn't really anything worth talking about besides the fact that it exists. The company would later go on to create such great series as Ratchet & Clank and Resistance, as well as the upcoming PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game. It looks pretty damn cool. The idea of a dragon was introduced by Insomniac artist Craig Stitt.
The most difficult part was the beginning, determining what kind of game we were going to do after Disruptor. Craig Stitt said, I've always wanted to do a game about a dragon.
I've always loved dragons. To me, they are just the greatest creature. I mean, it's the combination of a Tyrannosaurus Rex with wings and breathes fire. I mean, you've got the best of everything in a dragon.
And immediately everybody said, yeah, that's it. Because dragons can fly, they can run, they can flame, they can jump, they can do anything, and they're cool.
While Alex Hastings developed a 3D panoramic engine containing some of the first level of detail renders used on the PlayStation.
I had this idea that you could do a panoramic 3D engine on the Sony PlayStation, where there wouldn't be any fog in the distance. And I challenged Alex Hastings to create such an engine.
Most of what it takes to pull off that sort of panoramic engine, it comes around in, assembly draw routines.
In fact, I told him very specifically how to go about creating it. He blew me off and did something totally different. But it turned out much better than what I had in mind, because not only did you have these big, long views where anything in the universe could be seen from afar, but also he created an engine where you could have detail on the objects that were close.
The real trick is that in every transition we try to do is a fade or morph transition, something where you're not going to see it.
During the development of the game, Spyro was originally going to be green, but the developers thought it was a bad idea because he would blend in with the grass. So they eventually turned him to his iconic color of purple. But you probably already knew that, huh? Besides that, though, Spyro was a great success for Insomniac, and would later come to be a series that, well, persists to this very day. With all that basic info and trivia out of the way, let's move on to the first area of review: the game's story and characters. Spyro the Dragon's plot focuses on who else but Spyro, the little cutie pie, smart-mouthed, Nork and sheep mass-murdering purple dragon. The opening shows a few dragons being interviewed by...
Okay, rolling. Oh!
Some news station to talk about how much...
We now have 12,000 treasure, or is it 14,000?
money they have? What is this? Cribs for dragons? When suddenly the topic of Nasty Nork comes up, and this dragon here is like, "Oh no, honey, let me tell you about this bitch right here."
I'll take that question. Nasty Nork is a simple creature.
Simple.
He has been contained in a remote world and is no threat to the Dragon Kingdom. No threat! Besides, he is ugly. That does it!
And with that, Spyro is off to save the Dragon Kingdom from Nasty Nork. The plot is simple, but honestly I find it very charming. I think it's funny that Nasty starts the conflicted game because dragons just kind of shit-talked him on TV. Like, I like to imagine that he was building himself up as like, yeah, I'm the bad guy and they're real scared of me and they'll remember me, and they're just like, I don't care. And so, he has to freeze them, I guess. I don't know. This is basically the game saying, hey, we're not taking this too seriously, so have fun with it. It just kind of reminds me of the storytelling style of Ratchet and Clank, though perhaps in a more mild fashion. I'm sure no one has analyzed the Spyro stories as much as I have, but here I am. What am I doing with my life? The plot doesn't really progress from here, though. Being a 3D platformer collectathon, however, this isn't really an issue. You save the dragons, collect the treasure, and beat Nasty's ass. The end. Peace out. On the character side of things, well, while future entries in the series would introduce a colorful cast of characters, this one in contrast is much more dependent on the personality of Spyro to play off than many other dragons you'll be saving along the way. Spyro is energetic, sarcastic, and overall, he's a pretty chill dude. I mean, I'd hang out with him. Seriously though, Spyro's personality is pretty good overall. I feel like I get a much better sense for Spyro as a character than say I would from Mario, or even Crash to some extent. That's nothing against Crash. I love that orange boy, but still, come on. He's not quite all there, if you know what I mean. It's for this reason that I think I'm able to like Spyro beyond just being a cool dragon. There is this perfect dichotomy of Spyro being all badass and ready to kick some ass, and being utterly confident in himself, at the same time being this cute little baby dragon that I just want to snuggle. It's a lovely touch, really. Also, an interesting point, Spyro is voiced by Carlos Alezzacri, who is also well known for voicing Rocco in Rocker's Modern Life, and Denzel Crocker from The Fairly OddParents.
Don't worry, the only one who's gonna be trapped is him.
When we were putting together the voice of Spyro, we talked to Carlos Alezraki first, and last, as it turned out.
I think we went through about maybe 5 or 6 versions, where
He was like really, really young and had an oil up in the nose, and
that he was like really cooler and older, and they actually recorded something like that. But then they found out he was too mean.
So then we just kind of did a mixture in between the two. It was kind of like he's really kind of a go-getter kind of guy and kind of tough, but really kind of nice.
I think he does a pretty good job getting Spyro's personality across. I do of course prefer Tom Kenny in the sequels, who voices SpongeBob by the way, but I like to imagine that Spyro is younger in this game versus the sequels. But overall, Spyro is a good character, and one that I can see why so many are such a big fan of. But besides him, that's about it for characters. So, with that, let's move on to the gameplay. Spyro the Dragon is a 3D platformer collectathon at its very best, in my opinion anyway. The basic structure of the game is you'll start off in a hub world called a home world in this game. Think something along the lines of Peach's Castle from Mario 64, and be introduced to the theme of that overall homeworld, where you'll be able to jump into various portals. Think of them again like the paintings from Peach's Castle, where usually the goal is essentially to collect everything while avoiding Norks, baddies, as well as platforming and exploring every nook and cranny, including finding secret pathways and little secret areas in general. It's honestly very simple, and if you've played any other 3D platform before, you will probably feel right at home here. As far as collectibles go, you of course have gems, which are positively everywhere. Besides gems, you of course have the dragons to save, which double as a checkpoint and save point. Yeah, you gotta remember to save the game on these. It's definitely something they improved in future entries, but yeah, you also have these egg thieves that my family used to call nannies, 'cause, well... Yeah, you'll have to chase them down and flame them to collect the egg that they're holding. You'll of course come across various Norks, which is a gnome and an orc put into one word, by the way. A little random bit of trivia. And other mythical, freaky, and disturbing creatures along the way. Most of them being dispatched with a simple flame, or if they have armor on, charging into them will do just fine. I suppose now would be a good time to say that Spyro can jump, breathe fire, charge with his horns, roll for some inexplicable reason, and glide, which is the biggest platforming variation in this game. I would even argue is an important part of the identity of the Spyro gameplay. You know, before most every fucking platformer character could suddenly glide in all their games. Gliding is always super fun to do as well, and it provides a fair bit of challenge later on, though not much once you understand how Spyro's glide fundamentally works. More on that later. Besides that, in order to progress from homeworld to homeworld, you'll have to find the balloonist, who will have you accomplish some task for him to let you go forward. Like collect a certain amount of treasure, free a certain amount of dragons, that sort of stuff. Honestly, I recommend if you're going to play this game, just completing every level the first time you go into it if you can. It'll save you a ton of backtracking, and you'll be able to progress through the game without any issue. And you won't have to go looking for that last fucking gem that is always in a super obvious spot that you just walked by the first time because your lazy ass was rushing the game. That's the basic rundown of the gameplay, and if this game sounds fun or at least interesting, like I said, probably give it a go. But now comes the long, Fun, admittingly, smarty pants bit. Now that we know the basics of Spyro the Dragon, it's time to comb through this game like we're looking for ticks, as I go over the level design, aesthetics, and some personal stories as we go over the game, and find out what makes this game, well, tick. And also show off some of the great, innovative, smart, and downright creative ideas that are locked inside. Alright, starting with the Artisan's homeworld, the beginning of the game and the source of so much nostalgia. This first area is brilliantly designed to help you understand the game's core mechanics in a natural way. Firstly, the level starts you off on this narrow path that just sort of pushes you to go forward and release the first dragon named Nestor.
Thank you for releasing me, Spyro. Free 10 dragons in the Artisan world. Then find the balloonist. He'll transport you to the next world.
What about Nasty Nork? I'm going after him.
Find dragons first. That's all I can tell you.
From here, we are truly free to explore every single inch of this playground. The enemies here can't hurt you, but instead run away from you in a cartoony fashion. This lets you gain your bearings of your attack moves, and again pushes you to chase after them, to which each will actually take you to a different area of the map. I really like these 3 pillars here. You of course want to collect the gems on them, but in a subtle way it shows you just how high Spyro can jump, where his limit is, as the top one requires you to jump on the others to reach it. Another brilliant set piece is this little ledge here, with the treasure on top of it, that's just sort of begging for the sweet, sweet release of your fiery breath of doom. To get over there, you'll have to glide from the top of this hill, which could be a little tricky if you're new to the game. But the game's just gonna keep patting you on the shoulder and saying, "Hey bud, don't worry about it, and keep trying. You ain't gonna die here." Another element like this is the water, which Spyro cannot swim in this game. In fact, it fucking kills him. If you were to jump in the water, however, there is plenty of stones and little platforms to jump back out of it. Again, the game's subtly showing you, "Hey bud, don't ever fucking do that again, cause next time, I'm not holding your hand, bitch!" Besides that, the dragons here also give you basic advice and help you.
Hey, Spyro, press the jump button twice to glide, and don't be afraid.
Afraid? Of what?
Falling from high mountain peaks, plummeting into prehistoric glaciers?
Oh, that.
I won't gush any more about this opening area, but man, with how many videos I hear where they talk about Super Mario 64's front castle area, the Serenity and how it lets you gain your bearings of the gameplay, or Sonic the Hedgehog's fucking ramps and 3-lane level design, and how Green Hill Zone is just like the second coming of Jesus, I thought it would be kind of at least fun and important to show that this game too does a great job of establishing the game to the player in a really, really smart and natural way. And it's just a really pretty level, okay? The next level though, oh my lord, is probably my most nostalgic level from the game, Dark Hollow. The darkness of the night. The frogs hopping about, and that absolutely enchanting music here that just builds this perfect atmosphere that just makes you want to go camping, or if you're really lazy and don't want to fucking sleep next to bugs, snuggle up under a blanket in the cold of the night. I also think it's funny that these Norks have fucking bloody knives, and these fat Norks smack you with this big chicken/turkey leg. It's one of those levels that has always stuck with me, and I remember being entranced with the fire effect of these fireplaces as a kid, and how they lit up the darkness. And I remember fearing these fat Norks blocking your pathway to the underground area. You have to wait for them to turn around. For some reason I always thought they were going to turn around as soon as I went down to flame them. I think I'm just kind of a sucker for dark, moody night levels in general though. But I have a feeling that this bad boy right here is probably the level that started it. I had mentioned the music, but I suppose I haven't really brought up the composer yet. Stuart Copeland, who many of you know for being the drummer in the band The Police. He composed all 3 of the original games, as well as that other one. And I gotta say that his soundtrack is some of, if not the best music on the PlayStation 1. There's an interview video that shows how he composed the music.
Good, you have sound. Step 1 is to beat the level. Now for a 10-year-old kid, this is no problem. But for me, I have to beat the level and figure out the jumping, and I kind of navigate my way through the levels. In the very early stage, it's a lot of fun because I find a level that I can beat and get an attitude for it, and then create a piece of music for it. But then as the game progresses and I start getting to some of the more difficult levels, and I'm stumped immediately, I've got to beat this bad guy before I can stay on that level for long enough to write a piece of music for it. So I have to learn how to beat all the bad guys. And if I was having to pay for my helpline, I'd be running up a huge tab here. So then once I'm on the level and I've got a general attitude for the game, I have to, within the atmosphere of that level, have a lot of different changes happen, but stay kind of in the atmosphere. Then I go back and I look for how to make those inner complexities more complex, and to have deeper sublayers and things that don't really hit you the first time, but hit you the 16th time, so that it can survive repeated listenings.
I love the idea of him playing through these levels without music, and slowly coming up with the soundtrack as he goes. I think this is core to why every soundtrack seems to just fit each level like a glove.
They pay me for this. And then, of course, you can get into all the cool stuff like, okay, and copy the bass part onto other instruments to kind of thicken it up. And then I add scary stuff to, add to it in various different ways. Where is that? Now this is really where I'm giving away the trade secrets. This is where Mozart would be jumping out of his grave and saying, I want to live in this century, where I transpose that part from there up to there, and it plays that same piece of music. So I've just done a whole transition there, took all those instruments and moved them up that much. Looks like fun, doesn't it?
Copeland's music complements these enchanting worlds and truly adds a flair that, without, I just don't think Spyro would have ever been as good, to be honest. That's how important the music is to the design of this game. And speaking of design, let's look at some of the other homeworlds you can traverse. If I were to rank the 5 main homeworlds in order of worst to best as far as my personal taste for design and atmosphere are, it would be as follows. Number 5, Peacekeepers. It's nothing against Peacekeepers, really. It's a world of sand and war, and just kind of gives me a slight Mexican vibe as a whole as well. The dragons here are spotted and usually acting tough, ready for battle, and are kind of a bit smart mouths as well. I love this one dragon who goes on about the bird baddies in the level Dry Canyon.
Incredible glide, Spyro. I thought I'd be stuck here forever with those ugly vultures standing on my head. Those birds might look tough, but they're pretty tasty. Flame broiled, with a pinch of salt.
I also love the level Ice Cavern for its wonderful soundtrack, which is kind of gives it this oppressive atmosphere. And the memories of being afraid of the level due to me thinking it had ice physics. Thus, I thought that I could slip off the level with any wrong move. More on that later, by the way. However, I gotta say, I have a bit of a personal bias against sand levels in video games in general. They always feel like such a trudge to get through, and mentally, they make me tired, and at worst, really bored. I suppose they're just not really much to look at. It just feels, I don't know, yellow. However, Peacekeepers, even if it is my least favorite, is still a great homeworld. In fact, a great memory of the level Clifftown comes to mind. The whole level is brimming with these little jerks with knives that as a kid I thought were really intimidating, and these big fat mama norks, which I always thought were the wives of the little ones for some reason. I don't know why. As well as the level being this huge playground for you to climb up on top of the cliff and be able to glide everywhere onto each rooftop. And I'll never forget holding my breath the first time my mom was playing this game, back before I ever even tried playing video games, and when she glided across this huge chasm to get to the other side. Also, the music here is pretty kickin' as well. Number 4, Artisan's World, which I think I already pretty well covered before, but it is just a great starting level. I like the medieval playground aesthetic, so it's a joy to start with, in other words. Great level. Number 3 is Magic Crafters. Ah, Magic Crafters, the land of wizards, witches, and oh my god, what the hell is that? This is a world where the game really steps it up as far as design. I love the way the dragons here have this wise and elderly sort of tone to them.
Welcome to Magic Crafters. I want you to release the dragons, reclaim our treasure, and recover the eggs from those pesky blue thieves.
And I freaking love the enemies here. Unlike the other worlds so far, these bad guys aren't really Norks, and so we get a good variety of baddies. From these Fire Scepter witches that sound funny when you hit them, to these green wizards who try to block your path by moving walls, shifting pillars, or platforms. They always laugh at you from their safety as well. But that just makes it all the more sweet whenever you catch up to them and they start running around like a scared little coward and shit. Just so charming. And I love killing them. I also love these blue wizard dudes who shoot these blue ball things, and I love the little detail of how they fight each other if you watch from afar, and they only start getting you if you come up close. It's little stuff like that that really adds to the character of this game, and is, if you think about it, rather innovative and very creative details to include in a PlayStation 1 game. This is also the first world that introduces the supercharge, where if you charge down it, you'll shoot off like a bullet and be able to jump super far. But trust me, we'll come back to that later. This world is also brimming with egg thieves, mainly because it's the last world with them and because you need to have at least 5 dragon eggs to progress to the next world. But I always love how with some of the thieves you really gotta be quick and clever to catch them. Also, aesthetically, this world is beautiful, with this slightly snowy aura and heavy use of light blues and pinks. Quite beautiful. Number 2, Beastmakers. Oh my god, you guys, I love this place. Beastmakers takes place in a dark and dingy swamp like bog, and most of the levels are nighttime levels. I love the homeworld music. It's catchy, but also has this sort of natural beat to it, and also is much deeper in tone than the rest of the game. The dragons here have this Louisiana accent, which fits this sort of atmosphere nicely.
Nasty Nork is turning our swamp into an electrified junk heap. And it used to be so beautiful.
I'm sure it was.
I also love how some of them start out lounged out when you first release them.
Good job, Spyro. One day you'll be able to tell all the dragons about your amazing adventures.
Sure, but what I'd really like to do is get out of this swamp.
The baddies here are Norks again, but they got a bit of an upgrade, as it seems they have discovered the power of electricity, and will try to use it by any means to stop you. They also look like punk rockers with mohawks and shades, and you've seen how their own distinct style from most of the other Norks in the game. There's also, of course, wild hogs, shifty tree guys, and these fucking blue frogs! Along with being home to the infamous Treetops level, known as the hardest level in the game, and let me just say, the atmosphere here is thick as molasses. The music is calming, yet with a tinge of danger. These freaky monkey guys attack you with their green sack legs? Or is that their ass? And these ones with bananas always tend to stand out as really weird and different baddies from the rest of the game, but very cool all the same. The aesthetic of the level is really stunning too, being deep and dark into the night, traversing the tops of trees and temple structures. Of course, most people remember this game for the infamous Supercharged Challenge, in which you must jump all over the map, try not to fall down, and find out how to get to this yellow fucker over here on the island, with a frozen dragon no less. I remember watching my dad try to get over there so many times that I swear the music of this level was forever imprinted into my brain, along with the image of Spyro falling into the deep, dark abyss down below. But when you finally do it, which I remember we had to look up a walkthrough for, so, you know, whatevs. It is so satisfying, and you're greeted with this really cool interaction.
That was quite a ride, Spyro. You've learned a lot since you were a young glider.
Yeah, well, you could have found an easier spot to get stuck.
I love how Spyro just tells it how it is, and speaks up for the player. I also love the juxtaposition of Beastmakers, jumping from a magical world in the high mountains of magic crafters to this scientific down and dirty bog. It's just really cool. Also, I love this green soupy water. It's lovely and I would love to take a dip. Number 1, Dreamweavers. Yep, there was no question, no extra thought about it that Dreamweavers was going to be my number 1, because it's just without a doubt the coolest world in the whole game. Right from the get-go, this world has a really otherworldly, hypnotic vibe that I fall in love with every single time I go back and experience. The baddies here are also really unique as well. Not Norks again, they are instead everything from these strange looking guys and gals, I guess? These little devils, these fuckers, and oh Lord God help us! The dragons are also funny here. They act like hippies and or philosophers.
Welcome to the Dreamweavers, young one. While chasing Nasty's minions in this world, you must expect the unexpected and prepare for what is not there.
Ah, Spyro, thanks. Supercharge will get you to new places here in Lofty Castle, too. See where it takes you. Fairies are always on your side, Spyro.
Also, the music here is, well, dream-like. But most of all, this world has my personal favorite level in the whole game. Dark Passage. This level is utterly amazing in every way. The music here is kick-ass. The baddies here go from these cute little puppy whoopies to these monsters. Also, these turtles become invincible monsters, which it's always a nice touch to just have something that you can't kill. The gimmick here is, in the light, these guys are easy to beat, but in the dark, they become their true forms. I also love the devil guys. The lighting in this level is also simply undeniably Spyro. I love this one room where the flooring is different from the walls. It's just a wonderful experience to go through. It's stuff like this that I really can't wait to see translated into the HD remaster. Overall though, this is the best level, bar none, to me. Though, the next one is also a pretty damn good second place. Lofty Castle is kind of the opposite of Dark Passage, but in a good way. The music here is light and makes you feel like you're truly in another world, with these eagle cow things, and also these dumb Norks with balloons, and the noise they make when you pop the balloon. Yes, fall down into the deep, dark abyss forever. I also think it's cool that you gotta save these fairies in order to create a whirlwind of progress. It's just overall a really good level, and I like the use of pink and white in this level. Also, this is the only level with a red jumpy gem chest. So, yeah, respect it. Now for those observant among you, you might have noticed that I missed the final world, Nasty's world. But before we get into that, I feel I gotta lay something down flat. I gotta be honest, get something off my chest. The bosses in this game suck. If I were to name probably one of the biggest negatives of the first Spyro game, it would certainly be the bosses. Basically that they're glorified enemies. I mean, there is usually a dragon right next to them to kind of build them up a bit, but it's always very simplistic. But, for the sake of order, let's go over them real quick. The first boss is named Toasty, which is also the only boss shown in the Reignited Trilogy trailer. He's looking pretty dope. The level itself, though, is absolutely threatening. Found inside a giant dragon head that exudes this intimidating presence. From the bright orange and red sky, to the foreboding music, gothic cathedral, and these scary as hell dogs, this level is covered in intense atmosphere.
Nasty Nork has put one of his most devious henchmen in charge of the artisan world.
Bring him on! I think I smell a barbecue.
Be careful, Spyro. This boss has many tricks up his sleeve.
The boss himself, Toasty, starts off as this jack-o'-lantern guy who kind of looks like a Nightmare Before Christmas reject. After you hit him a couple times, though, it's revealed to be a sheep on stilts, which is pretty funny, and I always imagined that this dude is the same sheep that was protesting the game in the commercials.
Store's closed. Not for me, pal. You might say I'm Spyro's hot co-star. I love that little dragon. The way he blows fire at sheep like me. This is an official protest. I am an anti-Spyro activist. Genghis, come. What'd you say?
You're toast.
Help me.
Next we have Dr. Shemp, which unlike Toasty, is just in a normal, non-Dragon Head level. It's a shame, because I actually think it would be really cool if every boss level be inside an intimidating Dragon Head. But oh well. I love the screaming psychos in this world. It's really unsettling to hear them scream as they try to run into you, and to see them jump off the cliff if they don't hit you. It's also pretty funny. The design of this level is alright though. Nothing much here, really. In fact, it's one of the weaker designed levels aesthetically overall, in my opinion.
This This guy thinks he's so cool. You don't know what it's been like listening to him over and over. But I'll tell you one thing. He should watch his back.
But the boss here is better. I love that you gotta learn his pattern and then flame his ass to beat him. And I also kinda like the funny animation that he does going from platform to platform. He is one of the closest things we get to a real boss in the game. I also think he's just kind of a funny looking guy overall, with his shades and skull staff. He's a good boy. Then we have the boss level Blowhard, and yeah, we get it. It's a great level because it sounds like something dirty. The joke's been done to death. I know you all expect me to do the joke, but to do so at this point would be a hard blow to my rep. Please help me. I'm in a hell of my own making. I don't know how to escape. Anyway, this level's pretty good. The boss is kind of weird looking. Like he's this tornado with this little guy in it. But overall, he's pretty easy. In fact, the whole level is really straightforward. But nice aesthetically. And the music is decent. Though it doesn't really exude boss to me, to be honest. Next is Metalhead. And man, this on the other hand is a really, really cool level. You enter this temple and the monkeys from the treetops are here. But now they're wearing armor, so you'll have to charge into them. The level has this catchy tune that sounds like you're approaching a big bad guy. And Metalhead just kind of sounds like a scary name. Well, when you're a kid anyway. I like that this music also has this natural beat to it like the Beastmaker's homeworld. I also love that this secret path over here you almost have to fall into the green wire to get to. The boss himself is actually a lot more like a boss. Metalhead is a giant robot that shoots laser beams and tosses monkeys at you. To beat him, you have to break all these power poles, but they will flash red at times and hurt you with a laser if you hit them during this time. Overall, this is a good boss, and there's even a second round to it. If more bosses were more akin to this, with a health bar, I wouldn't mind it as much. Then there's Jacques, which I used to think was a fancy way to spell Jack when I was younger. Get it? Because he's a jack-in-a-box guy? Well anyway, this level is my personal favorite boss level. The music here is really breathtaking. I love the overall aesthetic of the level as well, looking like you're inside of a volcano. The bags here are also completely unique to this level too, never appearing in any other level, with these green guys and these yellow monsters, with a pretty little flower. How sweet. But seriously, what the hell are these things? They make such creepy noises too. I really want to see what nightmare fuel these things will end up looking like in the remaster. And speaking of nightmare fuel, how about the good old boy Jacques?
Any advice before this battle?
Advice? A wise dragon once told me, aim high in life, but watch out for flying boxes.
Huh?
He's this green, oingo boingo, jack-in-the-box thing. Look, I don't know what the hell he is, okay? But he's pretty badass nonetheless. But also really, really easy to beat all the same. I wouldn't mind if all the bosses were improved in the remaster, or at least given a health bar. Maybe given more time to actually hit you before they reveal their weakness. Anyway, those are the bosses, so let's jump right into the final world. Well, my boys, we have gotten to the finale. The big final world, and pretty much, it's a fucking dump. The music here is Toasty's theme again, but I think that makes sense because it honestly is the most intimidating theme in the game. The world is just a literal circle with dragon heads and one open level. Unlike the other worlds, you have to beat these ones in order, which really adds to the suspense and tension. I also just love how it's simply a circle of levels. Like the game is telling you, alright, no more screwing around. This is the test. Let's see if you're worthy enough to face Nasty Nork. So, with that, let's head to the first level, Nork Cove. This first level is super upbeat and catchy as far as music goes. The level is a bit longer than the average level in a Spyro game. At least that's what it feels like to me here. And has this mechanic plumber dudes, which you can knock barrels into. I don't know. They also have TNT as well. And they wear heart boxers. Yeah, you know, this level is really weird, to be honest. It looks kind of like a factory, I guess, but overall, design-wise, it's always been really confusing to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I really like the level. It's very different. I just, like, it's one of those things where it's just so different from the rest of the game, it feels like it doesn't quite fit exactly. But I guess in a good way. Also, there's a Parappa the Rapper reference.
Wow! I never thought I'd be rescued, especially by such a little dragon. What I mean is, I always believed in you, Spyro!
You gotta believe!
The next level is where shit gets turned up by 1,000. Twilight Harbor is this really cool as hell level with red skies and an orange hue to the level, and this rockin' soundtracks. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention, the Norks have fucking assault rifles! Yep, Nork Commandos. They're trying to gun you down in this level that I kinda like to think that Nasty Nork was being like, oh shit, that fucking little crap is right at my doorstep. Quick, no more screwing around with that magic and that stupid shit. Shoot that son of a bitch! It's a fitting final level before the big confrontation. I just love the juxtaposition here. Some of these Norks kind of look like the dudes you were chasing down at the start of the game, and now they're packing to stop you. And with that, now let's go on to the final battle with Nasty Nork himself. The level is simply titled Nasty Nork, who of course is the final boss. And let me just say, I have a lot to say about this, so buckle up kids, because I can't just let this already oversized video just end. So, let's start with the level design, which is really cool. I love this giant arena that you're thrown into, and I love how when you fly in, Nasty's already laughing at you. And it starts off trying to shoot these little beam things at you. Oh, and that music, oh man! It's great. It's kind of intimidating, but it's also just really kicking and catchy. It's nice. It really fits for a good final boss theme. It's all great. Top notch. But this is, in retrospect, a really, really easy and rather anticlimactic final boss. The whole goal is at first to chase down these two guys for keys, so you can access the area where Nasty's at. After that, you run after him, and then you flame him. After that, there's this area full of lava and moving platforms that starts. You gotta fly across the platforms quickly. And then, you just gotta flame him one more time and he's dead. Now, the second part can be a bit tricky, but it's not anything too bad. It's a shame because at the beginning of this level, you have this big, giant arena, and all I can think is, man, wouldn't it have been cool if he just fucking fought you here? But oh well, that's nasty, friends. Very nasty. After all that mess, if you collect all the treasure eggs and free all the dragons, you can access the real final level of the game called Nasty's Loot. And this is a really great final bonus level. Basically, you work your way up to being able to fly like everywhere, free roam fly, by chasing down these thieves and eventually being able to get to this very tippy top part. Then there's this final room, with all these explosives and Nastri's portrait, and, well, oh yeah, that's so satisfying. And after all that hard work, you get rewarded with this cool final cutscene where Spyro is rocking some cool shades, man.
How do you feel? I feel fired up, Bob. And I'm happy for the Dragon World, of course. I certainly wouldn't want to spend the rest of my Dragon days butting heads with Nasty Nork and his weird minions. What's a minion? Never mind. You know what they say. For every good battle, you need a good adversary. And I felt that Nasty, in spite of his misguided nature, was a worthy opponent. Uh-oh. Here we go again!
Overall, Spyro the Dragon is a great game that I thank God and my mom and dad all the time was my very first video game I ever played, because of how it captured my imagination, how it helped me mold my taste in games, and how it has forever held a piece of my heart. This game, of course, isn't quite as good as the two games to come, in my opinion. But what it does have is this very special charm that no other game has, so even though it may not be as good as the sequels, it certainly stands on its own. It's also the only game as of writing this that has been shown off in the remaster footage, and so far, it's looking fantastic, and I can't wait to see what's next. Well, this has been a very, very long video, but it's still only part 1 of our marathon. And coming up next, it's time to set the stage for Ripto's Rage. I'm sorry. Make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for part 2. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and comment to me what your favorite Spyro the Dragon level is. Just the first games, though. We'll get to the other ones later. And until next time, this has been Dylan the Night Owl, flying off.